Welcome everyone to the inaugural Benchwarmer Sports football podcast. We're here with Angelo and Kevin. As always, like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter. Ride the Bench 307 is our handle. And again, our mission is to get you guys involved. Let's start talking about all these teams that aren't getting talked about, that aren't getting the love, and every major sports story out there, every league, every sport. And that's what we're about. So make sure you're commenting what you want to hear, and we'll make sure we make some content around that. But anyways, huge news in the NFL today, big news cycle today. Big thing today, and Kev, I would like to hear your input. Big Ben retiring after 17 seasons and 18 years.
That's big. That definitely brings up a lot of questions about what's going to go on with the Steelers, but also congrats to Big Ben on a huge, successful career. 2 rings, definitely a first ballot Hall of Famer. The crazy thing about him is the year I started watching football, back in 2004, was the year he got drafted. So now I was 9 years old. I'm 27 now. That's insane.
It's crazy, and that was the first year I really started watching too. And I just remember they were 15-1 that year, and they were, as a rookie, you don't hear those things. 15-1.
Sure.
What's your thoughts, Angelo?
Big Ben, he was good, really, really good. Great quarterback. In my opinion, a top 10 quarterback. He was able to sling the ball down the field. I think he was like top 5 in throwing attempts, but also top 5 in completions as well. So, I mean, he would throw the ball downfield, get a bunch of yards while doing it, and win while doing it as well, because the Steelers are always in the playoffs every single year. They were kind of like the Patriots. You'd always see them in the playoffs, and they weren't necessarily a team you wanted to see in the playoffs neither. So, Big Ben was good. He was really good in the playoffs with fourth quarter comebacks, game-winning drives, ranked number 3 in fourth quarter comebacks behind Manning and Brady. So just crazy. He had his ability to win games and was just amazing.
Yeah. I mean, he took on that role of being that person in that city, and he embraced the city. That's a blue collar town, but he embodied that blue collar mentality every season, and that he really was a staple to that city. Great player, top 5 in yards, 8th in touchdowns. I mean, you say top 10, I say definitely a top 15 quarterback, first ballot Hall of Famer, no question to me, in a draft class where, in my opinion, with Eli Manning and Phillip Rivers, they're all first ballots, definitely Hall of Famers. But I think if you're asking me, I would vote all of them first ballot. And he might be the best one of the group. So it just says how great he was. Eli won 2 Super Bowls as well, but statistically, he, especially toward the end of his career, he had some struggles. And he was on some pretty bad teams. Phillip never won a Super Bowl, but statistically might have been the best of the group. And so, Big Ben kind of is both. He won games, he had the statistics to back it up, and he was dangerous. And people that didn't watch him in the younger, when he was younger, he had a unique ability when that play broke down to break sacks, to get away from sacks, to extend plays. And it's what you're seeing, these new quarterbacks, that's who they are. Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, probably the cream of the crop when you're talking about these young quarterbacks. And what do? When the play breaks down, they're big physical players. They can extend the plays, whether with their feet or, keeping their eyes downfield. And, Big Ben was one of those players that did that and was a mold for that.
I know, especially in fantasy football, he was definitely one of the quarterbacks you wanted because he threw for 500 yards every single game. So definitely a great player. It'll be kind of weird not seeing him on the field anymore, but I mean, that's going to start happening with all these quarterbacks getting old. So
Dwayne Haskins time.
Dwayne Haskins season in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Mason Rudolph.
I don't know. I don't think they really.
We'll get to what's next for their quarterback situation in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we just got to appreciate him and shine the light on what he did, opposed to what's next for the Steelers right now. Because I mean, he was a special player, and you don't just call people first ballot Hall of Famers unless they've earned it. And 6 Pro Bowls, you know, he was in a era with great quarterbacks. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers, Eli Manning. Toward the end of his career, you know, you had Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. You have some excellent quarterback, Drew Brees. I mean, obviously he's NFC, but there was a lot of players that got a lot more love. But he was right there with them every single year. So fantastic career. And with that, I mean, just we thank you as sports fans for what you did. But we got other big news we got to get to.
Thank you for letting the Broncos beat you with DT.
Yeah, Demaryius Thomas, rest in peace. You know, that was huge. But I mean, Big Ben got us too.
Yeah.
On the road to his first Super Bowl, he beat us in the AFC Championship. A really good Broncos team too. A team that had beat Brady in the playoffs. So that was no slouch team that he beat. So I mean, great player. He got the Broncos and we got him, and there's a mutual appreciation there, I think, from our fan bases. But yeah, I'll see what's to come with him and the Steelers, and we'll get to that. But thanks for all those memories. But, you know, moving on, we have some huge news in the NFL with coaching hires, GM hires. It's a wild start to this hiring cycle here. So, Kev, what's going on in Jacksonville? I don't understand.
So everybody thought it was going to be Byron Leftwich. You know, that seems and still is the obvious hire for the Jaguars. The problem is their current GM, who was just the interim GM, they just made the full-time GM at first. All right. They did not get along. Him and Byron Leftwich do not get along. With that said, reports are coming out. They're going to hire Albert Wilson to be the new GM of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was originally working here in Arizona for the Cardinals, and they liked him so much they wanted him to be the GM there. So they're going to pair him up with former OC. Well, I don't know if he was OC or quarterback coach of the Cardinals, but Byron Leftwich. They're going to be paired up, and supposedly, rumor has it, Vic Fangio may be running the defense, former Bronco head coach. We can see how that all turns out.
I mean, and he's in you know, Broncos fans have a lot of dislike for Vic Fangio right now, but ultimately the Broncos defense was fantastic this year.
Is he at the moment? Not just last season, yeah.
That he was fantastic with Chicago. He had some fantastic moments at Stanford, some fantastic moments with Baltimore. I mean, he is an excellent defensive coordinator. Okay. And this was a beat up Broncos defense that didn't have Von Miller toward the end, that didn't have Bradley Chubb most of the year. Secondary was getting hit, and even more where we got really hit is we were down to like 4th string rookie inside linebackers. And really just the linebackers in general were beat up. So I think Vic, I mean, if he's going in there and running a defense, you can count on he can work with anyone. And schematically, he puts players in a position to succeed. And even though he is an older DC, he has moved along with the NFL. And what I mean by that is he is one of those people, he bends, he doesn't break. And he gives up in the run game. He gives up more because he knows it's a passing lead. But his defense is tighten up as those teams start driving. And he can bring pressure with 4. And if you can bring pressure with 4 these days, that's how you beat those young stud quarterbacks. And he's shown he can do it. So I think it's a good fit if he's the defensive coordinator.
I would look at it too. So what were the Broncos' defensive rankings at the end of the year? They were about top 10, right?
Well, scoring defense, I think we were 3rd.
They were doing that with backups and 3rd strings, as you were saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
So imagine Vic Fangio, because he is his defensive-minded coach. He was pretty much your guys' DC. Technically, you guys had a DC, but that was the main thing he was focused on. Imagine if he could do that in a place like Jacksonville with young studs like Josh Allen and
Mhm.
Miles Jack,
Yeah.
and more
You
pieces.
have a
I
good
could, you know,
front seven for sure.
yes,
Yep. And he specializes in secondary. So you got the front seven where your playmakers are, but where their issues lie is the secondary.
which you could touch
And
that free agency and the draft this year.
yeah, and he's gonna get pieces there, and he's a really good in the secondary. And the Rams are one of those teams where you look at, Brandon Staley, now the head coach of the Chargers. That's part of Fangio's tree. And you look at the Rams still, these younger teams with younger coaches, they're following Fangio's defensive mentality. So even though he's older, it's not one of those outdated philosophies. So I think he'd be successful there.
For the salary cap for Jacksonville, they're third as well too. So they
They
have a
got
lot of
pieces.
money.
Uh,
They have a lot of money to.
It'd be foolish to go any other route other than Byron Leftwich as head coach. I'll tell you that right now. You got a young
Absolutely.
stud quarterback in there in Trevor Lawrence. You give
You
him
think those two will mesh well?
well, I could see it playing. Sorry, I could see it playing out like it did in Philly with Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz. People will always say, "Oh, well, look how they ended." Well, look how they began. You know, you had a head coach, a rookie head coach who was a veteran NFL quarterback at one point. You gave him an OC who's played the position. You gave him a quarterback coach that played the position. All of those guys and pretty much put their minds all on the table and were able to come up with a whole system to work for Carson Wentz. You could do that with Byron Leftwich. He literally was just playing in the NFL not too long ago at a pretty good level. He was the Jacksonville Jaguars starting quarterback for years, the franchise guy. He was supposed to be the one. Like if anybody knows how to play quarterback in Jacksonville and what to expect is Byron Leftwich.
Yeah.
So if I was Trevor, I'd be going in there saying, if you don't get Byron Leftwich, I demand a trade.
All I
I'll
know
say that
is
right
whatever they do in Jacksonville, they just need to keep the head coach there for a little while. They can't
Yeah.
keep switching on Trevor Lawrence like what is happening with some of these other younger quarterbacks and not giving them a chance because they have to switch a completely new offense every year.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, a year ago, you're talking about maybe the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck, who was the best prospect since John Elway.
Yeah.
And, you're talking about a third best prospect of all time. That's a player
Don't
that is
blow it.
well regarded. And he had his issues last year, but all of these young quarterbacks do. And how can you thrive when everything with Urban Meyer is going on? The Jacksonville wouldn't have fired Urban Meyer had it not
was
been for
a
Urban
clown
Meyer.
show. It was a
You know,
clown show.
it was yeah. I mean, it was Clown Town, just quoting Pat
It
McAfee
started.
and their fan base.
I know from what I read, it started really at the beginning when they were forcing a quarterback competition with Minshew and Lawrence. And what I read is that there were some players that felt Minshew deserved more of a shot than Lawrence because Lawrence was a rookie. It wasn't a shot at Lawrence. It was Lawrence needs some more time and Minshew looked better. But they kept advertising this quarterback competition. In reality, it was pissing the team off.
Yeah.
They need to find their starting quarterback. That's really number one for any team. Get your starting quarterback.
Yeah.
So you're advertising this quarterback competition, you have your guy, and then you trade him. So that's already got like half the locker room being like, wait, what? So that's where it started. And then of course the lap dance pursued and then everything else.
Yeah.
So,
Didn't travel with the team. Potentially kicking a player and physically being aggressive with them, calling coaches out and saying that they're not winners. And it's a team of coaches he assembled. If they're not winners and you're just going to use that against them, why hire them in the first place? It was probably the worst coaching hire in the history of the NFL.
absolutely.
And it was just for lack of better words, it was the shit show.
Mhm.
And so, and to your point with Minshew, another failure they had is, it wasn't a competition. You draft this kid number 1 overall, and Minshew did some nice things early on in his career, but don't even bring him to training camp.
Exactly.
They were
Shouldn't
just
hate
they
it.
were just trying to get trade value for him and make him look better, to other teams. It wasn't he wasn't a serious candidate to start, and then you divide the locker room,
Yeah.
and it was just mismanaged.
It was really bad. Because you're correct. Once he made that decision, okay, we're gonna go with Lawrence, then it should have been either we trade Minshew or we cut him. Because here's the thing, people could bring up his contract all they want. Dude was what, a 5th-round pick, 6th-round pick? Can't be that expensive to cut him right now. It's not that bad. Are you kidding me? Don't even let him come into training camp. And of course you do. And guess what? Minshew really isn't a terrible quarterback. He could outplay a rookie Trevor Lawrence. That's not that crazy to think about. And you caused friction in the locker room.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah,
I mean, I think they have I think they have a lot of growing to do. Not a good team at all.
they got a lot of growing to do, and they just need to instill the culture of winning there again, because somewhere along the way they lost it. So I think whatever they do, they just need to
People
build a
forget
culture again, because I don't think the Jags have it anymore.
4 years ago, they were one game away from the Super Bowl 4 years ago. They still have some good talent on that team. They just need the coaching. But we're ignoring some other big news, though, guys. We're going to get to the bigger coaching news here in a second. We got to talk about the Bears. And so, mainly because you could probably say his name better than me. Explain.
Matt Eberflus is the
DC from the Colts.
defensive coordinator from the Colts. Yes.
Brandon,
So
I'll let you go. Are we still recording?
Where's Brandon?
Well, we lost Brandon for a
We
second.
lost Brandon.
I'll give you my reaction.
Gotcha.
I do not think that's the best hire for the Chicago Bears. I definitely would have not gone that route. And the reason why is if you wanted to get a defensive-minded head coach, that's fine, and go the veteran route.
Yeah.
This might please the old school Chicago Bear fans that miss the dominant defenses that they're used to seeing. But you got a young quarterback in there in Justin Fields who has so much hype in him. You have so much riding on it. You gave up so much for him.
Chicago loved that pick, though.
Well, yeah, Chicago loved the pick, but don't ruin him. Give him a coach that knows the position. So here's the thing: I could bite my tongue, I could eat my words if he ends up getting like a genius offensive coordinator, quarterback coach to help him out a little bit, but I would have gone a different route. I mean, maybe it's because I'm an Eagles guy. Maybe somebody like a Doug Peterson. He knows that position real well. He won a Super Bowl with literally 2 quarterbacks, so he would know what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Even at times with Jalen Hurts his last year, they flashed. He knows the position. That would have been a good hire for them. Somebody like that. But
yeah, this coach, he had only, I think, 1 or 2 years of defensive coordinator position experience. Other than that, he was a linebackers coach for the Cowboys and the Bills. So I don't know. He doesn't have. It's going to be interesting to see how his leadership affects, because obviously in that interview he did some convincing to persuade the Bears that he's the guy for him. So his mentor is Rob Ryan too, so he's a good defensive coordinator. Towards the end, not as much, but sometimes these guys that maybe just didn't get the chance, and maybe they'll be great. So you never know. But he definitely doesn't have quite the biggest or longest resume. That's for sure.
And like I said, I can end up being my words. For example, I was not the biggest fan of the Nick Sirianni hire. I'm still not. you probably still could have gone a different route with that. But you know what? He led my team to the playoffs. So right now I can't complain too much. I wasn't a big fan of the Doug Peterson hire. Nobody was. Did you know that there's people that what was it? Mike Lombardi had that as the worst coaching hire of 2016.
Yeah.
You know,
And he wins a Super Bowl.
he only won.
You know,
You know who got hired that year? Hugh Jackson.
Yeah.
He was the
Yeah.
best hire to some people.
and Hugh Jackson is a phenomenal OC, but he just
Phenomenal.
never could put it together as a head coach.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, you could argue
And maybe
even
it could
with
have been Cleveland at the time too. Cleveland was
Yeah.
terrible.
Cleveland was, and they didn't really give him a shot with Baker.
Yeah.
You know, when you get that first overall pick, you know, he had a very short leash with him.
Mhm.
So I think Hugh Jackson sometimes was thrown to the wolves when he was a head coach, but he had his moments as a pretty solid head coach.
I think his last year with the Browns, there was a lot of upside, and they just decided to cut him right then and there, which was kind of crazy.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's arguing that, you know, he was a great head coach, but I think what you could argue is that sometimes he didn't have a long leash, Hugh Jackson. But, you know, he's coaching a HBC right now,
Yeah.
HBCU. So that's a different topic for a different day. But
The Bears, they got their head coach, so we just got to see what they're gonna do with him.
Oh, yes, they did.
yeah,
Now, I'm not going to ignore the biggest head coaching news of the day for everybody in this chat. Anyway,
Hackett.
Daniel Hackett to the
Denver Broncos.
They finally got the guy,
Yeah.
and I will say,
We
Long
finally
time
got
Bron-
a offensive-minded head coach again. The last
Long
time we
time-
had one of those, we won a Super Bowl.
as a longtime Bronco hater, y'all know this. I approve of the hire, man. I think that was actually a genius move. You guys want a solid quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, which of course we know he ain't just solid, but you know what I mean. You finally want to get a good offense. You get somebody like Hackett that has a good relationship with somebody like Rodgers, you know, that could actually get you guys a good quarterback. Quit with these Case Keenans, these Joe Flaccos. Get yourself a dang good quarterback finally. You finally got, at least on paper, a good hire at coach. Because I'm sorry, I was not a big fan of Vance Joseph. I was not a big fan of Vic Fangio. You guys have always had a good defense. Right or wrong? Since
Man, yeah, since 2015, we've had a very solid defense.
So it always confused me when it was like, oh, well, we need to hire a guy that won't fix this problem. We'll just make sure this side is still good, but we'll still ignore this problem because that's what Vance Joseph did. I feel that that's what Fangio did. I get your guys's confusion at times with, oh, well, what are we going to do with the defense now? You guys have how many starters coming back right now?
I mean, we are losing some pieces, and some of those pieces were like fill-in pieces. You know, we don't know if Kenny Young's coming back. You know, we have some younger pieces, and you know, Browning is a piece. You know, the younger piece, but we don't know how they're fully going to pan out. Weatherly was another late, you know, mid-season trade, and he might be gone. I mean, we might be losing some pieces. That being said, I do think we have an excellent secondary. So we, you know, where we need to focus as far as building our defense is the front seven. But we have draft capital, and I think we can do that. But ultimately, you're right. With Hackett, you know, you're taking an offensive-minded head coach. And I think with George Payton at the helm as GM, we eventually one of these GMs has to show some balls, and they need to get a quarterback that where they put their job on the line. And I think that's where it's been an issue. You get the Joe Flaccos, you get the Teddy Bridgewaters, you get these bridge quarterbacks, you know, and they can have some solid games here. They're not horrible NFL quarterbacks, but they're not your franchise piece. And you've seen none of the John Elway and George Payton so far have not put their job on the line with a quarterback. Nope. As you've seen, you know, Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, you know, they got fired and it didn't work out for them, but they did it twice. They did it twice there. And you got to keep plugging away, and they're taking the easy way out. So hopefully the Hackett direction will will change that.
I think at least on paper it is. I think now Denver is the favorites for Aaron Rodgers. Absolutely. So that will also attract a lot of other good players. So you're worried about your defense? Guess what? Aaron Rodgers there, you can have me as a defense coordinator out there. You give me all the good players, we'll be fine. You're going to be able to keep all the pieces that you're saying, like a Kenny Young. If you're able to pull in Aaron Rodgers, which I think you guys can with Hackett now, you're going to be just fine with that defense. Angelo, what do you think?
I just kind of look back at what he's done so thus far and how it aligns with our team. So with the Buffalo Bills, he was an OC with the Bills. It was that 2013. That's when they had EJ Manuel and Kyle Orton. I think Kyle Orton was their starting quarterback that year.
Yeah, so we won't talk about that.
Well, when I think of that, Kyle Orton is kind of similar to Teddy Bridgewater or Drew Lock as far as that goes. And their offensive passing that year was 29th. So that's something that we need to focus on is passing. And if we have equally level quarterbacks, and it was 29th, then that raises some questions. But when it comes to the Jags, they went to the AFC Championship, and their quarterback was Blake Bortles. So he gets it done rushing. I think that's a big thing for us. His running back that year was Leonard Fournette, which is a power back, similar to Javonte Williams. And then that year, they were ranked first in rushing. So he proves he can get it done with the rushing offense as well, even though he had a mediocre quarterback in the boat. But the boat. But
and they had an elite defense.
Yeah,
they had an elite defense.
Mm.
So I mean, I think there's and from everything that I hear is, yeah, you can watch Hackett with the Packers because they've been successful.
Yeah,
but you have Rodgers, and you have LaFleur who calls the plays. You have a really good nucleus of weapons there as well. On the offensive side, you have a good defense. So it's hard to just point the finger at Hackett as being responsible for what happened there in Green Bay. But at the same time, the Jacksonville is where there was a lot of success with not a lot of pieces on the offensive side. And they got the job done. For Jacksonville, that was an elite year.
Who was their head coach that year?
Marrone?
Marrone, yep.
Doug Marrone. So
I think he moved from the Bills with him. I think that's what happened.
Yeah. So I mean, it will be interesting to see. I think it definitely helps. In either way you go, whether you draft a quarterback or you get Aaron Rodgers, increase your likelihood of getting Aaron Rodgers. I would hesitate to say we're going to get Aaron Rodgers, and the reason I say that,
hesitate, but go ahead.
I just say that because how often is an elite quarterback like that traded? And Broncos fans, we got to tone it down and hope it happens, but we can't expect that to happen with everything. You have to hire Hackett independently of Rodgers. And if you get Rodgers, that's great, but you have to look at what he's going to bring to the table if he doesn't have Aaron Rodgers. And I think we're looking up.
Jordan Love doesn't look good.
Yeah.
Jordan Love did not look good the times he got to play. So,
but he was a raw prospect, and he was a boom bust prospect. And we'll see how he turns out. He hasn't. A lot of people thought that Rodgers was going to be a bust in his limited production before Brett Favre left.
The thing with Jordan Love too is he probably should have never seen the field. He probably should have never seen the field. He was never expected to. I'm not trying to give him excuses, but ever since his career began, man, I just gotta say I feel sorry for the dude. I gotta feel sorry for the dude. I mean, he was booed on draft night. I mean, for obvious reasons. If I was a Packer fan, I'd have been pissed off about that pick too. Absolutely. But man, people need to realize he did not put a gun to this team's head and say, draft me. That's not what happened. And because of that, how many people did you know were like, oh, Jordan Love is going to go in and kill it against the Chiefs his first start? Everybody expected a bad game. Let's be real.
With a defense that was on fire, and it was at Arrowhead. You know,
Like,
he was thrown to the wolves that game, but he was a second-year quarterback.
He was thrown into the wolves. His first ever start against a team that.
Well, he didn't have a slouch of a team on his side neither.
Mm-hmm. Team went to 2 straight Super Bowls. Yeah, he was thrown into the wolves, and people are going to take what they saw from that and are like, "Oh yeah, he's not a starter." I don't know if I agree with that.
It's going to be tough for the Packers for sure because they don't know how Love's going to play, and if they just trade away Rodgers, it looks like they're getting away Adams as well. So you're losing your best receiver and your best quarterback on offense, and you're stuck with Jordan Love and Randall Cobb. So they still have Aaron Jones because they resigned him, but as far as offensively, you got to think for the Packers, there's no way they're going to give up a trade that huge unless they get a lot in return.
Yeah.
So,
and you got to, and I think that they might give Rodgers a little bit more bend with where he goes because of everything he's done with the Packers and that he stuck out this year. And they kind of had that agreement that he's going to decide what he does next year. But with Devontae, with his youth and with him still technically being eligible for the franchise tag, it might be independent from Rodgers. Even if they want to go together, there might be lack of. I don't see the Packers without completely a team willing to give up everything. Going and saying we're going to do a year without Devontae, especially if you're going with Jordan Love. They might want to have a year to help gain his confidence with having a number one receiver.
Absolutely.
So, we'll have to see what happens. And, the gambling odds say that the Broncos are number one, destination if Rodgers was to leave. But today we just got to look at the Hackett hire and see how it impacts the current team that we have and see what happens. And I think that it's a good direction. And I think that we're taking an offensive-minded head coach, and it's what we need.
All right, so I'll start this off with this. Well, we all agree with this. Where is Aaron Rodgers going to play this upcoming season?
I think he's playing in Denver Broncos. That's where he's going.
My heart tells me Denver. My brain tells me Green Bay.
I'll go with Denver. Let's go on. Since this hire could potentially kind of, really shock the NFL and, really mess up the quarterback situation a little bit this offseason for other teams. What's going to happen? Where will Russell Wilson go? Let's say. Where y'all think?
I have 2 destinations in mind, and one Seattle. I think that they've had some success there. They've had one down year really that whole time, which was this year. They have a good coach. They have a good culture. But if he was to leave, I think the team that comes to mind for me is New York, the Giants. They have the draft capital in that top 10 to get it done. See him, being married to Sierra and them being kind of a celebrity couple. It's beneficial for their brand to be in New York and be in a major market. The Giants can also throw Daniel Jones on top of that, and there's still a lot of Daniel Jones hasn't been great, but he also hasn't really had a fair shake, and he's had a bad culture in New York, and he's had some flashes. His rookie year when he came in for Eli Manning, he had some flashes. He's shown pretty good mobility. He's not the fastest quarterback, but he has deceptive speed, and he can be a weapon. So I could see, you throw him in there with some first-round picks, it being tempting for Seattle.
All right, so how about we play this game? I'm going to throw some quarterbacks out there, match him up with the team. All right, we'll just match up. First thing that comes to your mind, okay? So we'll go with Wilson first. And
Angelo?
you'll explain. So you said Giants. I'll stick with the Giants for
Giants
you.
or Seattle? Yep.
Me, I think Seattle. They have a lot of money, cap room as well, and they can go get whoever Russell Wilson wants if it becomes that big of an issue. So
Yeah.
I think Wilson's gone from Seattle. I do not think he's coming back. With that said, few teams come to mind. Giants, I could agree with Brandon. I could definitely agree with your take there. Saints now,
Yeah.
Texans,
it's a tough one.
Dolphins.
With the Saints, though, their cap situation may not allow for it because they're like negative 70 million, and then you just lose Sean Payton.
The
And so you're
Saints
going
are
to
in a
lose some key
really,
people.
really, really bad situation,
Yeah, they are.
and that's why
I
Sean
think-
Payton left.
I'm out to toot my own horn.
And that's
here.
why he left. He knew what he was running into.
I'm out to hype myself up a little bit.
They were bowl or bust, and now they're 72 million in debt and have contracts coming up. Don't have a head coach, no quarterback.
They're screwed.
The Saints.
That's gonna be a hard. That's gonna be a hard place to get a good coach. They're gonna be tough.
I wouldn't want to be a coach there.
I wouldn't want to take over the job.
They do have some good talent right now, but as far as
They
that
do.
cap situation goes,
Yeah.
nothing.
Ah,
So it's only
so
down from there. to be
I'm
honest.
actually going to toot my own horn here. You guys are probably going to roll your eyes at me. Y'all see where I'm coming at here.
Eagles.
Let me back up my evidence here. Like what you did. Let me back up my case, like how what you did with the Giants. So, sure, Howie Roseman came out recently in press conference saying Jalen Hurts is a guy. Just this past year, there were reports saying that they did make calls for Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson during the trade deadline. Russell Wilson happened to be a guy that Howie Roseman wanted to draft to Philly back in 2012. Well, not 2012, but when he came out. Whatever year he came out. Was it 2012? It might have been 2012. Dang. I thought he was older than that. But anyway, supposedly he would waive his trade clause. I'm
2012
just
is
saying,
old. That's 10 years.
I thought like 2000. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? He just seems like it. To me, you have more pieces. If you have all the pieces in the world, if you wanted to get a Russell Wilson, and really, if you truly felt like you could get an Aaron Rodgers, Philly has what, in my mind, would be the perfect offer. You could give him 3 first-round picks this year if you wanted one of these guys, rather if it is Rodgers, Wilson, Watson, you name any quarterback that might be on the market that you would win a Super Bowl with right now. Philly has the ammo to do it. I'm not saying they will. In my mind, in fact, I don't think they should. But, we all know how Howie Roseman is, man. He is good with the trades. He is good with trades. He's good with contracts. He's good with money. So that's why I'm just going to throw the Eagles out there as a shot. Okay? All right.
I agree. I think there's a possibility there. I would give the Giants a bigger chance, but I do think I see where you're coming from. And I think Jalen Hurts also is a more desirable piece if you're talking about trade, when you're over Daniel Jones. He's gotten a team to the playoffs. He has unique mobility. He's shown some upside more than Daniel Jones. So
probably fit that what they already have on offense in Seattle with Russell Wilson. They wouldn't really have to change much with Jalen Hurts, really.
yeah,
He moves around the pocket just like Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, don't get me wrong, is a magician. I'm not saying he's just like Russell Wilson, but he's able to do some Russell Wilson type things in the pocket. He has other things to work on for sure. But no, if I were to Seattle Seahawks, a couple first rounds or 3 first round picks and a Jalen Hurts or something, I would probably put some serious thought into that.
yeah.
That's all I'm going to say. Now, Deshaun Watson.
I don't really have too much to say about Watson yet because there's legal issues. So it's kind of hard to gauge where he's going to go.
If the legal issues, end up going his way, where would he go?
I think the best answer I think I would want to see who Miami goes with their head coach. But I think Miami's been the one he's been tied to a lot.
Mhm.
I guess the Ross family's been up in the air on him though, with the legal situation. He's a unique talent, and if you get someone like Brian Dable from Buffalo, who's an elite offensive coordinator and an elite play caller, that might be a match made in heaven, even more than Brian Flores. I know Brian Flores wanted Deshaun,
What about
but Dable's a better match.
the Steelers?
Steelers is an interesting one. Now,
There's interesting.
that opens one.
I have a
They
different
have
quarterback.
money.
I have a different quarterback for them that I think Kevin might, hit on a little later. That I think I see where I that's where I see Jimmy G going.
I see Carolina for
Deshaun.
I could see it, man. The thing with Carolina, man, is they have so much for a supporting cast. Like, they just need the quarterback, Sam
And CMC to
Darnold,
be healthy.
yeah, I'm sorry, Angelo, your boy Sam Darnold, he just wasn't it.
Hey,
I'm
those
sorry.
first 3 weeks of last year, no
Yeah,
one matched, no one compared.
Yeah, sure. And then Darius Slay ruined that. But anyway, I think Watson would be perfect. They have the receiving core to do it. CMC could be hurt and they would still be fine because Watson would be the leading rusher easily.
They have
Anyway, you get
Hubbard
that.
there. He did good.
Yeah, their backup running back's good too. He was a rookie from Oklahoma State. I forgot his name, but they have a good backup. So they definitely have some pieces that if I was Watson, plus
For backup for what position?
running back Hubbard.
Hubbard?
Yeah, Hubbard. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's a good spot, and also you guys got to keep in mind the home field idea for him. The home field idea. I get he's not playing in South Carolina where he came from with Clemson, but they would definitely embrace Deshaun Watson as if he was their own because it's still Carolina. So you would definitely see a lot of orange in that stadium. It would just be, I think, it'd be a genius move if the legal issues, subside, to bring him in.
Yeah.
Perfect marriage.
And you can come to Denver if the legal issues are good too.
You come to Philly.
Then you get a young guy.
Broncos will take him.
You get a young guy because Aaron
We need,
Rodgers. That's my beef with Aaron Rodgers is he's old. He's not a long-term solution, and you have to trade the franchise away for him in reality. And you're getting 2 seasons maybe with him, and it might be you might get a Super Bowl. You're definitely going to be more competitive, but it's a big risk. With Deshaun, you're mitigating that risk because you have more time with him, and you have him signed he signed an extension with Texans, so. But we'll have to see.
So
what about other quarterbacks?
Jimmy G.
To Pittsburgh?
That Pittsburgh is where I have Jimmy G going.
Angelo?
Jimmy G. I have no idea.
I'll say Washington.
I have no idea where he would go.
Washington.
Over Heineke.
Yep. Washington.
Say what you want about Jimmy G, and I think this is why he's ideal. And I think I could see this with Washington as well, but with Pittsburgh, he wins. He wins. And when you have a 71% win-loss percentage, and you've been to now two NFC championships and potentially 2 Super Bowls. There's a lot to be said with that. And he's going to lose Kyle Shanahan if he goes there, but Tomlin is an excellent coach and an excellent, has an excellent culture built there. And they got some defensive pieces with TJ Watt and Cameron Hayward, Minka Fitzpatrick. Joe Hayden had some excellent plays. He's older, but Joe Hayden's still playing good. So
Pittsburgh be able to afford Minka Fitzpatrick. That's
Pittsburgh. They have 34 mil to spend. They have
$34 million.
But now, here's the thing. Do you use a lot of that for a quarterback? Or do you go all in? Because Fitzpatrick is going to probably be the next highest paid safety on the market. I'm just going to be real. I'm not saying that because I want the Eagles to get him. I'm saying that period. He is probably going to be the next highest paid safety. Do you make
Well, I
it?
wonder how the salary cap is affected by Big Ben's retirement
That's
and how
true.
much, he was. So I don't know if he was under contract or not next year, but I would like to see that number tomorrow now that he's officially retired
Yeah.
and off the payroll. But I mean, I think they could still, with Tomlin, they can replace Minka.
Oh, absolutely.
I think with that culture, and I think Jimmy G brings some stability to the position. He doesn't eliminate you from getting a younger quarterback like Kenny Pickett, who is that does go to Pitt and is a well-regarded quarterback in the sense of this draft. This is a weak draft class, but he's considered by a lot of people the best one. He's easily the quarterback they're going to know the most about because he plays in the same stadium.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that. I think a lot of these quarterbacks would benefit from a year of development and not being thrown to the wolves, because most of them would be second rounders in any other draft. They would not be first rounders. So
that's most of the big name quarterbacks. Derek Carr, maybe. What do you guys think? Is he a Raider next year?
I think
he
that
stays
kind of.
with the Raiders. I
You think
think he likes it there. I don't think he's going to be asking to go anywhere, and he's been doing good over there too. So
I got a shocker for you guys.
that
Yeah.
team went through a lot of
Yeah.
crap, and for him to take them as far
Give-
as he did, I
Give
don't
me a
think the
moment.
Raiders trying
Trust
to give him
me.
up.
I got one for y'all. For him.
I think Derek Carr. I think sometimes part of it will come down to who the Broncos get, because if you all of a sudden get an elite quarterback in Denver, well, now you have to play Herbert twice a year, Mahomes twice a year, and then another elite quarterback twice a year. So 6 times a year you're playing an elite quarterback, and Derek Carr is very good, but I don't think anyone's going to say he's elite. And so
Say Raiders.
I would say it depends on the Broncos. I think if the Broncos get another like Kirk Cousins or and Kirk Cousins is not just a bridge quarterback, but he's not elite. If they get someone that is not a very good to just another bridge quarterback, I think Derek Carr has a better chance of staying in that division.
I will say this. This is going to shock you guys. Derek Carr will be with the Seattle Seahawks next year as the starting quarterback for the Seahawks. I don't think it's going to be a Russell Wilson Carr trade. I think what happens is they'll trade Wilson to wherever, and sooner or later realize, we still need a quarterback. We'll use some of those pieces they got from Wilson, and they'll flip it for another really good quarterback that could still win you games and get you into the playoffs and potentially even on the brink of a Super Bowl, in my opinion, with Derek Carr. He could be your quarterback for years. Hook him up with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. In my opinion, he might even have a better arm than Russell Wilson. I could be wrong. He doesn't move around like Russell Wilson. But some of Carr's throws I saw this year were just mind-blowing. So
I think statistically, Russell Wilson has the is the best quarterback on deep balls in the league.
He does show some pretty.
He has that nice arch on it, and he places them well. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to say that. I mean, Derek Carr does have arm talent.
He has arm talent,
but
that's a tough one. But
I still would take Russell Wilson over Derek Carr. But if you're talking about you have to get rid of him,
I'm saying if they get rid of Russell Wilson, they're going to get Derek Carr. If Wilson is traded, Derek Carr, they're going to find a way to get Derek Carr into Seattle.
Well, that's pretty much all the quarterbacks I can think of. But a quarterback I think we should talk about as far as retirement goes, Tom Brady. What do you guys think about that? He hasn't directly said anything on an Instagram. He said he wants to talk to his family first to see where he is. So right now he's basically saying his family's making his decision. What do y'all think?
Say he has one more go.
I think he'll ultimately go one more, but I think that I don't know that for sure because
I think he has
I think
one
he's
more go.
starting to reflect for sure.
He has one more go. I think he kind of goes like what Kobe did, what MJ did. It's going to be treated like a tour. Everybody is going to like flood every stadium. They're going to have a big thing at every stadium for Tom Brady. So yeah, I think he'll be back for one more year.
You think he's going to do what Dwayne Wade did final year?
Sean Payton being gone helps that case too because you eliminate the other good team in that division, realistically for this year. And Carolina's not near competing unless they get an elite quarterback. Matt Ryan is very old, and you could argue that if Tom Brady retires, he's the best quarterback remaining in that division. So I think Tom Brady's going to realize that he's got a unique opportunity to easily get into the playoffs because if they stay healthy, they're going to just destroy that division next year.
Yeah.
On paper, anyways, games have to be played still, and teams surprise sometimes. But on paper, I think he's going to realize that division's weak, and he can take advantage of that. What about Kirk Cousins?
Cleveland.
Kirk Cousins.
Just Kirk for Baker straight up?
I don't know about Kirk for Baker straight up, but I think Baker's done in Cleveland. I think all the stuff that came out this year with the drama with Odell, with the drama with even Kareem Hunt, he was called out by not just his teammates, but their dads, bro. So imagine if the teammates and their dads are calling you out. Imagine what that whole fan base is thinking of you. I just don't see him recovering from that. So I could see him being on the move.
It was an interesting injury recovery process he has to go through too, being a quarterback.
Shoulder, torn labrum.
So
it's his non-throwing shoulder, I believe. So that's positive. That's a positive.
And I think Kirk Cousins is an upgrade from Baker anyway. I think Kirk Cousins would take that offense with that running game and with like a Jarvis Landry and those tight ends. He would take them to better heights than Baker did. So I think that would be the match for them. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see it, and then you also you look at who their head coach is.
Mm-hmm. True.
You do see who their head coach is, but I don't know. I think Kirk Cousins would be good in Cleveland because he does what he needs to do. Now he's not going to blow your mind without all these amazing stats, but he does he's an above average quarterback. The only reason why he wasn't doing too great in Minnesota was just because the last couple of years Minnesota's defense has not been good at all. So you may have Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook on your offense and you're able to score, but if your defense is still giving up 30 points a game, which I think they ranked last in scoring defense, it's going to be tough for any quarterback to overcome the worst defense in the league. So
yeah, it's true. I mean, that defense is rough. I agree. I don't think Kirk Cousins is a bad quarterback. I've always said he was a little overrated. I don't think he's bad. I don't know. I think I don't know. I think he would be a huge upgrade for that Cleveland offense.
For sure. Yeah, I think the biggest thing that Minnesota made a mistake on with Kirk Cousins was how much money they paid him because his contract was so huge. They had to start resigning some of these defensive players and they had no money to do it because they spent it all on Kirk Cousins. So I don't think they regret signing him, but maybe they regret signing him for as much as they did.
Yes, absolutely.
So the Vikings are interesting too because they just got a new GM. So
they did.
New GM. I'm trying to figure out his name real quick.
They'll need to get a new coach. That's going to be interesting, right?
Kawhi Adolfo-Mensah. That's his name. He's from Cleveland, actually. So that is something that's interesting to say. If you're saying that they're going to switch those two, he is the VP executive over in Cleveland. So
call me I'm just a fortune teller, bro. I can see the future, bro.
This guy's known to be an analytics kind of guy from the 49ers. He worked with the 49ers for a long time and learned from their GM. So it's going to be interesting.
GM is from Cleveland, so
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, it is true. The Vikings do need to find a head coach as well. They have that's
Dougie
another
P.
tough hire for sure. Their defense isn't that great, and they owe $12 million in cap space. So
WP.
that's another place that could be a little bit harder as far as salary cap goes. So it'll be tough.
Oh, let's move on.
I'm back. My computer crashed again. So
Well, welcome back.
yeah, I'm glad you guys are recording. So
Yeah. I made
Is it-
sure to actually do that this time.
don't
so.
buy an HP computer. I'm just telling you guys all now. Don't buy an HP computer because this is not a cheap computer. This is
against games.
I got their nicest one. So, but anyways, yeah. Sorry, I missed the tail end of that conversation.
Oh yeah, we were talking about Kirk Cousins. I said Cleveland, and we were talking about the new Vikings GM, and now he's from Cleveland.
Yeah, the VP executive from Cleveland.
New GM coach might
We
want a new
have 2 games coming up Sunday. What's your guys' takes on those? AFC Championships kicks off in the morning. The NFC gets the night game on Sunday. So Bengals versus Chiefs. Who do you think got it, Brandon?
Chiefs are the 7-point favorites, and what
That's
I
a lot.
learned, yeah, they're 7 points. The Bengals won the regular season matchup, but it was a much more important game. Well, it ended up being a huge game for the Chiefs too, but it was a home game in Cincinnati, and they were playing for the division. And at that time, I believe it was their playoff lives because that division was still open. I would not pick against Patrick Mahomes. He's been there, he's done that. And what I learned on Saturday night or Sunday night, excuse me, is even with an elite quarterback performance, on the other side, with Joe Burrow is great, but are we expecting him to play like Josh Allen did on Sunday? And even with that, and even only letting 13 seconds out, on the clock, Patrick Mahomes won. And it's hard for me to go against that guy. It just is a Super Bowl champion. He's been to the Super Bowl the last 2 years. He's been to the AFC Championship 4 straight years.
I think he has that chip on his back too, because at the beginning of the year, everyone said, "Oh, Mahomes is done now. They figured him out. He doesn't know what to do anymore."
Well, I didn't say he was done. I did kind of think that they were kind of figuring out the offense, and the reason why I said that is because I remember it was a Chargers game. It just seemed like everything you're used to seeing the Chiefs do. Rather it's these running screens to Kelsey, these end arounds to Hill, these deep routes to Hill. Chargers just knew the exact answer. They were the kryptonite. It was just insane. And I was noticing it with the following week and then the following week. And even games they were winning, I would still notice that these defenses are figuring them out.
Well, Todd Bowles in Tampa Bay figured him out, and he gave a blueprint on how to stop the big plays. And the question was, will a big play Mahomes, who wants the big play, will he
dink and
dunk and work what the defense and take what the defense gives him? And we're seeing that he is now. And what it now does is now you have to stop the dink and dunk, because now you're getting Tyreek Hill. He's in space, and he's still taking it all the way. I mean, he's a unique
with
speed.
ease.
And now, I mean, they're both working. And so I wouldn't bet against the Chiefs this week. I don't know if they're going to win by 7. I think that's a really, really big spread for an AFC Championship game. But we'll have to see. I think Joe Burrow brings a unique level of coolness, a unique level of clutch. I mean, you cannot argue his success and what he brings to the table. And unlike young quarterbacks, even like someone like Justin Herbert, where I wouldn't necessarily trust them in the playoffs because they haven't been there, he's won a national championship, and he's been on the biggest stages. And a lot of these quarterbacks haven't. And so I would give him a better shot than a lot of quarterbacks. I don't see him outplaying. I don't think he has as good of a defense as the Bills. And you can argue that the Bills were terrible on defense this last week, but they were the number one defense in the league all year. And the Bengals are a middle of the road defense. They have some good pieces, but they're middle of the road defense. And it's hard to say that you're going to get a repeat performance, how Josh Allen played with Joe Burrow, and it still wasn't enough for the Bills.
Right.
So it'll be interesting. What are you guys' thoughts,
I think Joe Burrow. Sorry, I'm not Kev, but I think Joe Burrow is on fire, and I think the Chiefs are going to have to come and play because he's going to be playing. Him and Jamar Chase have that it factor where they're connected. They know what kind of throws he's going to be throwing, where the ball's going to be before he even throws that ball. And you only see that kind of connection with like Rodgers and Adams, maybe Brady and Moss from that one year, Megatron and Stafford. These two together are very dangerous. And the first time they played with each other, they torched the Chiefs. So unless the Chiefs can find a way to stop Chase, and even if they stop Chase, they have Higgins and Boyd as well. So
Joe Mixon,
their offense is on fire. They have the swagger, and I mean, their field goal kicker said they're gonna go to the AFC Championship. Like they're riding with a lot of confidence, and I would not be surprised to see the Bengals beat the Chiefs at all.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised. I see the Chiefs winning, but I do see a really close game again. I do think Joe Burrow is going to ball out again, but you're right, Brandon. I have a hard time betting against Mahomes. I have a hard time betting against Reed right now. I mean, they're both all-time greats. They're just really fun to watch. But give them a couple years, Burrow will definitely be up there with Mahomes, but I don't know. I don't see Mahomes losing right now.
And to counteract what I said, sorry to interrupt. Counteract what I said. Yeah, you can just look at it in a tunnel of like what the Bills did and the positives of the Bills, but the positive the Bengals are they have a much better running back in Joe Mixon, have 3 solid wide receivers, and the Chiefs could just scheme against Stephon Diggs, and that's why Gabriel Davis just went off, is because they're like, well, if Gabriel Davis beats us, we'll take that.
Burrow
That's
can
what
run
it should
too.
be. And yeah, Burrow can run. He can extend plays. He's not going to be the threat that Josh Allen is running the ball, but he's deceptive. And he can get your 10 yards, and he can get you some first downs here and there. I think Burrow's he has some great pieces around him that really Josh Allen didn't. I wouldn't say that. And is it Uzada, the tight end for the Bengals? He's a solid tight end too. So they got pieces. I question their offensive line. I do. But Joe Burrow got sacked 9 times, and they got to come to play against the Chiefs this week, because Frank Clark isn't gonna. He'll feast on that.
I think the biggest thing also that I think of is the Bills were built to beat the Chiefs, but I think the whole time the Chiefs aren't necessarily thinking about the Bengals. They were probably thinking about the Bills the whole time throughout the year, because they know that that's their number one competitor every year, probably for the next 10 years. So I part of me just kind of thinks what part of them really, how much time they put in to beat the Bills versus how much time they're going to be putting in to beat the Bengals. Because I'm telling you, they're red hot offense with the Bengals, and they have all the history behind them. They have a lot running behind them. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see too. So
it's going to be exciting,
because as you saw with the Chiefs and Bills game, defense didn't matter. When your offenses are that hot, defense does not matter. So
you can't stop it. You can't stop it. And it's going to be interesting for sure. A lot of weapons. And I think that you could pound the over this week. I think it's 54.5 again, like the Bills Chiefs game. And I think that if you look, that's a good bet.
That is a good bet. I think their last game was like 70 points or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Now for the other game.
NFC.
This is an interesting one.
I'll let you guys pick first.
Well, I don't know about a pick, but I want to analyze both teams a little bit, and then we can kind of discuss how that ends up being. Because I can make an argument on both sides. I think
the upsets.
49ers.
Niners are going to win. I thought, because I'm sorry, I thought that the Packers were the best team in the NFC this year. I did not think LA was touching the Packers. I did not think Tampa were touching the Packers. This Niners defense, they're good. And you got to keep in mind, yeah, Jimmy G might not be the best quarterback in the playoffs. The offense might not be the
He
best.
doesn't need to be.
He doesn't need to be, but guess what? He's been there before. They're not playing like the best offense, but they're playing like an offense that's been there. They're comfortable. They were comfortable going into the Lambeau Field in that blizzard. Did not
Yeah.
care. That scares me enough to say I got Niners winning 24-14.
Oh, 10 points too. So you're giving them.
He's got a score and everything.
They've won 6 times in a row too.
Yeah, when I think about that game, I think of the same thing with the Bengals. The 49ers are on a hot streak as well, and they don't lose to the Rams. So, like, it's a tough one for me to pick outright, but I want the Rams to win. I think at the end of the day, the Rams defense is going to be good enough to win them the game. And I think the Rams offense is just slightly better than the 49ers offense to where it'll give them the advantage, because I think it's going to be more of a defensive game like the Packers and 49ers was, and it's just going to come down to whose defense is going to break first. So
yeah, if it gets away from that low scoring mold though, it favors the Rams. They have the firepower, and if it becomes an offensive game, that's the worst case scenario to me for the 49ers. Even though they have Kyle Shanahan, who's a brilliant play caller, he can make miracles with Jimmy G. I think with Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham Jr., and then Matthew Stafford, they can stretch that field, unlike the 49ers can. Even with Deebo Samuel, who is a weapon and an excellent player, I think that they're going to be able to stretch the field if it gets to the point where it becomes an offensive game. If it becomes a defensive game, I'm taking the 49ers. I think they're the best defensive team left. Kev hit that. I don't think they're the best defensive team in this game. I think they're the best defensive team left. They're the best. They got a good front seven, good secondary, and they contained the NFL MVP last week to 10 points. I mean, it was a really good showing. It's a very interesting game, and the spread is way closer.
I'm just interested to see what Von Miller's got to say, because the last 7 games he has been going off, and he's been showing up for these big games. So I'll be interested to see that for sure. 6 sacks in 7 games.
He has to show up though, because he plays for a team that never has a true home game. What do you mean?
The interesting thing about that I read on is that the SoFi Stadium, if you are buying a ticket from outside of Los Angeles, you don't get to go.
Dang.
Because of how big of a crowd San Francisco had that last home game.
Yeah, so they're trying to limit it.
They're restricting San Francisco fans to actually come to their home game.
And you can still say that, you can try to do that, but the 49ers have been the team of California. And, the Rams are still establishing themselves. I think they've positioned themselves to be the stronger team over the Chargers. But I think the 49ers fans will be there. And that's interesting.
So you gotta keep that in mind too. Is it going to be a home game for the Rams truly, or is it still going to be how it's been with really both LA teams?
And it's not like Arrowhead. It's a gorgeous stadium. It's the nicest stadium in the league, but it's not like you have to worry about crowd noise and you have to worry about this 12th man advantage like you do with Kansas City or Seattle. Lambeau Field. I don't think the 49ers are really worried about the environment. And I could be wrong,
Well,
but
I'm
I
saying I don't
see
think
it.
they're worried about it. If I was the Rams, though, my thing is I'd be preparing more for a away game, even though I'm technically playing at home. Be ready for an away game because that's not going to be a home crowd, in my opinion.
I think the biggest things the Rams need to focus on this week is not turning over the ball. Because against the Bucks they did that a lot in situations where they they couldn't afford to turn over the ball, and they did. Even that last drive, Stafford looked like he almost fumbled the ball with the 38 seconds left on the clock. So I think that's probably a major emphasis in the game for both teams. They know that they fumbled the ball, so I know that the 49ers are telling them to hit the ball because they're going to fumble it. So it's going to be an interesting game. I think the Rams, they're going to have some confidence issues because they almost lost the game from 27-3. So
Yeah.
even though it was against Tom Brady, you supposedly have one of the most talented defenses there is, and that still happened. So
Mm-hmm.
it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see because you have a team that, yeah, you won, but you slipped by after having a huge lead versus a team that just beat the team that everybody thought was going to win the Super Bowl and have been on this streak. So it's going to be interesting to watch for sure. I'm excited to watch it. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. We have two good games. I think I would like to see. I think the potential of a Rams Chiefs Super Bowl would be really interesting. Actually, Rams in general versus the two offenses in the AFC that are left. I think we could be up for the exact opposite of the last Rams Super Bowl, where they played the Patriots and it was no fireworks whatsoever. It was pretty boring game if you're not into defensive football. I think that the fireworks that the Rams
I'm talking about
provide
the second
would
one,
be
right?
interesting. Yeah, I'm talking about the second one.
The second
A few
one.
years
Okay.
ago. Yeah, not the Brady, the first Brady Super Bowl. So I think it's gonna be really interesting. And I mean, I see a
Back-to-back
lot of
years where the home team gets the Super Bowl stadium.
I think we were kind of just kind of extending. I think it would have been cool to have a Bills Chiefs AFC championship. I do think they are the best two teams in the AFC. And the Bengals, that's not a knock on them. They're a young team, but the Bills have been there and they showed that they can. It doesn't matter who's on the other side. You give Josh Allen the ball with 1 minute left, he's going to torch you still. I think we were kind of, and I'm a homer, but with Josh Allen going to University of Wyoming, but I think that was the matchup we wanted all year. Was the Bills and the Chiefs. Obviously we wanted the Broncos, but realistically they weren't getting there. So I'm bummed out about that, but it should be interesting.
Well, I think that wraps it up for today, eh?
Yeah.
Make sure you guys comment your thoughts of where we were wrong, where we were right. We'll make sure we interact with every single one of you in the comments. Like, subscribe, any kind of feedback and comments you guys have. Make sure you follow us. And again, Twitter handle, Ride the Bench 307, Benchwarmer Sports, and interact with us on there. We'll start posting a little bit on there, and we're brand new to this, so be patient with us.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Later, guys.
Thank you guys.